Jenna, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so here we go. Hello, everyone. This is Chuck Tirone, Reading's Conservation Administrator. This meeting is being conducted in person and remote format consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, which further extend COVID-19 measures regarding remote participation in public meetings until June 30th, 2027. Please note all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. This agenda includes those materials which can be reasonably anticipated to be discussed at tonight's meeting. Please note that tonight's meeting is being recorded and that all materials for this meeting is available on the Conservation Division page under projects by year. Brian Bowe, the chair of the Conservation Commission, will facilitate tonight's meeting. Please note that there will be public comment at the end of each hearing. Each vote taken during tonight's meeting will be conducted by roll call. We'll begin with a roll call attendance. Brian, can you review tonight's agenda and take the roll call attendance?
Yeah, we'll start with the attendance, and this will be the order that we vote in when we get to that portion of the show. Walter, can you go first?
Walter Talbot, Commissioner Present.
Tony,
Tony Rodolakis, Commissioner Present.
Tim,
Michelle, member present.
Martha,
Martha Moore, Vice Chair present.
Brian Bowe, Chair present.
Recording in progress.
Order at 7:04. So a quick review of what we're going to be covering tonight. There's a few hearings. The first one is a notice of intent opening a hearing for DPW Birch Meadow Park and Modular Classroom, followed by continuing a public hearing on a notice of intent for 885 Main Street. Then continuing a public hearing for 695 Pearl Street. That's it for our hearings for tonight. And then we have old new business, some discussion items, and some minutes for approval. Having said that, we might as well dive right into the first one, which is DPW Birch Meadow. Is there anybody online that needs to be?
In modular classroom, we have Stephen Cristofelli and Ryan Percival. Maybe Ryan can come up and introduce the team.
Hi, Ryan Percival, Town Running Town Engineer. Happy to introduce the project, Birch Meadow Phase 2. This is following Phase 1 of the Birch Meadow Master Plan. It's a renovation of an existing playground tot lot on the Bancroft, as well as a new basketball court, post-tension concrete basketball court. Additional to that would be, we added on the modular classrooms as part of that because to help out the schools. They're in the buffer zone area, so we added those on. We added some additional parking as part of the project as well. And we have stormwater infiltration system in place to capture all of the storms and treat those. So I can pass it over to Activitas. Stephen, he can introduce his group and they can go through the little presentation on the plan. And then following that, we'll touch on the modulars really briefly with some of the consultants we have from that group. GNAP and Hancock, I think, might be present online.
Yeah, Joe's here.
How's it going? Steve Cristofelli, Activitas. He's gonna pull up the presentation. Just run through kind of what Brian just spoke about, brief overview, and then I'll turn it over to Holly Ganser, our engineer, to dive into a little more of the stormwater scope. So obviously the site, I think we have some existing conditions photos in here. Next slide. And the buffers.
Excuse me for a second. Can you speak up? I just don't know how sensitive these microphones are.
So this slide is showing the wetland edge, 25, 30, and 100 foot. Some existing conditions photos of that wetland edge. Next slide. I think there's some other site photos. Site plan. So this was an earlier iteration back in November, where we were showing a little bit more parking on Bancroft. And after meeting with the neighborhood, we scaled that back a little bit. Want to go to the next slide. And brought that down to kind of just providing accessible spaces for this renovated space. So playground is essentially replacing the existing playground in place, approximately the same size, new equipment, and similar for the basketball courts. Almost the same size, just replacing with post-tension concrete in lieu of the asphalt that's out there. Aside from some walkways and landscaping improvements, we're adding pathway lights, some benches, everything to kind of mimic what we did in phase one, so everything will match. That's kind of it. It's pretty straightforward. Just zoomed in. And we're also doing some improvements at the crosswalk with some accessible curb cuts. And then when we keep going into the site plans, you'll see that combined site plan modular site prep, which we are in the process of still confirming the tree removals. I know Mike Hannaford was out inspecting. There are a few of those trees in the middle of the site that do need to come out, just health reasons. So we need to update this. But we are gonna add trees. And this is the joint plan showing that modular off to the side. And then stormwater, I'll turn that over to Holly.
So quick question, the modular unit isn't part of this application?
The modular is part of the application.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Holly Ganser with Activitas. I'm the civil engineer for this project. So just going to do a quick overview of the stormwater design for this site. So wetland is page south here. And I'll touch just a little bit on the additional kind of request for the reduction of the no structure zone as well that was included in the NOI application. So starting with stormwater, we are adding about 4,000 square feet of impervious on the site just with the addition of the accessible walkways. So to mitigate for that increase, we will be proposing a subsurface infiltration system. So those plastic units that you see, they're pretty shallow profile because we are up against groundwater that's about 3.5 feet below ground surface. Those are shallower units there, but you can see those to just the west of the basketball court. So the runoff from the basketball court will be collected in a channel drain and then will be piped to that subsurface infiltration system. And then that subsurface infiltration system will have an outlet control structure on the downstream side of it that will detain the water so that we can meet the rates of runoff and either reduce or meet the rates in the existing condition comparison. That will then tie into the existing infrastructure for stormwater that's already on the site. The site has quite a bit of utilities running through it currently. And actually in this location, the wetland is connected hydraulically there and connects into the stormwater system that ties into the street and then eventually continues up Bancroft Road and continues on its way. So when we were modeling this from when we were modeling this all, we considered it all as one drainage point that was the street and the existing Reading infrastructure there. So we are either meeting or reducing the rates of runoff with the proposed condition here with the addition of that subsurface system. So I can pause any questions for stormwater before I move to the.
How is the wetland connected hydraulically? Is it
So, yep, so there is it's a little hard to see in this plan, but there is a head wall, just where, Chuck, I'm sorry, I can't point to things that you'll be able to see, but,
I don't know where the head wall is, but
yep.
It was more visible in a previous.
Yep, I can point to it if we can go to maybe the aerial, I can,
I don't.
just, can I walk up to the screen and just point? So it's right here, right where this wetland kind of cuts off right here is where the head wall is and where the pipe is, and I was just out there today and in fact, right out through that.
So currently stormwater goes into the wetlands and then it goes out and out.
Correct,
Okay.
yep, correct.
And then where does that culvert go to when the water goes into it? Where does that water go?
Yep, so there's a series of manholes that are spaced throughout the park that we are proposing to remain. We may need to raise some rims just based on the grades, but there's a series of manholes that are through the park, and then they ultimately connect into the drainage system that's in Bancroft Ave.
Where's the
And
outfall?
where does that?
And that
drainage
outfall,
go?
I believe, is what's connected kind of with the whole park that then eventually outfalls somewhere near that river or stream up that way.
Is it, do you know if it's connected?
Next to
near-
Castine Field, that ditch. It
Okay.
discharges right over there.
Does it go through Morton also or not?
It goes through, yeah, it eventually goes around through where phase one was, down past behind Morton, and then connects up that way, discharges out in the ditch on Castine.
So I had a question. So ready.
But she said it goes up Bancroft. That's what confused me.
So do you guys have any questions right now, or
Yeah.
should she continue?
Sorry, go
Can I
on.
continue? Okay. So moving on to the request that we included in the application for the reduction of the no structure zone width. As you could see when you were looking at the existing conditions maps, there is portions of the existing site that already are within that 35-foot no structure zone. So as a part of this project, we're asking for just a slight reduction of that 35-foot no structure zone as well. We've placed the basketball courts in a way that won't be getting any closer to the wetland than existing. And we're actually in fact removing some of the existing impervious that's within those zones as well, as we can go back, Chuck, to the existing conditions plan
Sure,
that shows the buffers.
Two questions. The existing basketball courts had sheet flow onto the ground and then it was into the wetland or somewhere near the wetland into that outfall and down on its merry way. And now we're just collecting everything off the new basketball courts directly into infiltration chambers, and anything that comes out that's not infiltrated would go back into that culvert that you just pointed out.
It won't go back to that culvert. It connects to the existing infrastructure further downstream.
Does it end up at the same outfall? Okay.
Out at Bancroft Road, yes.
The basketball courts, they're close to the 35-foot zone. Is that because you upgraded the basketball courts to bring them to a certain size or anything like that? Made them more accommodating for ADA access or any kind of access? I'm just wondering, you're touching the 35-foot line, why?
So the basketball courts, in their existing condition, that line is within 35-foot now. So we actually pushed the courts about 4 feet further page north to allow that channel drain and everything to hold that line of the existing basketball courts.
So these are further away than the original ones.
The courts are, but
Yeah.
the channel drain associated with the edge of the courts are along the edge of the existing line of.
Okay, I just wanted to
Yep.
understand where we are with
Yep.
this. This one here,
If we could just go back to the aerial that showed the buffers, one more, I think. Sorry.
the buffer's in all, but
I was gonna show the existing conditions plan with the buffers on it, just so we could see what,
I'm going to keep flipping until you say stop.
this one's perfect. So as you can see that, from the aerial, the basketball courts are existing within that 35-foot zone. So as a part of our project, we have held that existing line, so that we aren't pushing the basketball courts or the associated channel drain any closer to the wetland there. And if you can see on screen left here, there's a portion of that existing pathway that actually cuts through even the 25-foot buffer. As a part of this project, that pathway will be removed and rerouted along Page North, even outside of the 100-foot buffer. Additionally, as a request of, I believe, Conservation Department, they've asked that we make a connection from the Longfellow neighborhood on the Page South or Page, bottom of the page to the right. And that connection will also be within just a portion of that pavement will be within the 25-foot buffer as well.
Tell me when to stop. Get back to where we were.
That aerial was perfect. I think that helps us speak to, yep. So as you can see, that connection is on the page there. Thank you, Jack. That connects to that neighborhood, and that was just a request that we pave that and make that connection a little bit more.
I know there was some questions right there. Do you want to stop for a second and address
Yeah,
all those questions?
Didn't know we were gonna wait to the end for all questions, but might as well ask some
Happy to
here.
answer whatever.
So water comes down that street and there's a paved trench that goes down and takes a left 90-degree turn. So a number of questions. Why do you say that that path is going to be created is just within the 25 feet? That seems like that the 25, that the wetland is right there. What am I missing?
According to we were just preparing to pave the existing kind of footpath that was there in place. So according to just the information that we had with where the flagging was, where we were showing the paving, was just within the 25 and beyond. But I can get a better distance to the
I
wetlands.
just
to the
don't
flags, and
understand
that's
how
why.
that wouldn't be essentially have the wetlands right there because the water flows under that culvert and it goes right into the wetland there. So I mean, I didn't take a tape measure to measure that. I just assumed it was close.
It would be helpful if I point out where that culvert is, because I think it's not relative to that, where you're looking at the walkway. So off of Longfellow, there's an existing pathway that comes down, the drainage is collected in two catch basins right here before it goes. The culvert area is over here.
No, okay, see, that's, got it. It's the use of the word culvert. Okay, my turn, come up there. I'll join you.
Okay.
All right, so I've been trying to call, would you just call the culvert over here? You know, the head wall, of the stream.
Head wall into the, yep,
Coming down Longfellow, there's a culvert that goes across,
yep.
which is mostly occluded.
Mhm.
Very little come through, probably some backup water on that property. What I'm saying is, so the water comes down the hill, down the street, and then right there, where the path is going to be, as a 90-degree turn, the water is channeled right into the wetland. So since that's going right into the wetland, there, just a few feet away, I don't understand why this is theoretically the wetland line.
Okay, well, we could take another look at where that distinction is, but I do,
That's not stormwater coming down the street.
what is not stormwater, I'm sorry.
Isn't that stormwater coming down the street?
Yes,
So it's not jurisdiction.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
It's a pavement. Like, go ahead.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain without looking at Longfellow a little further down.
So I had another one or two, if I can, in that area. Again, where that pathway is going to go on the side furthest away from the school grounds, there's a bench there that's dedicated to Papa, somebody whose last name I forget, 1920 to 20, something, anyway. Is that inside or outside the work area? Will that bench be preserved?
I think we can say
Yeah,
that
the
we
bench
work to
stays.
preserve that
Okay.
bench, and if it needs to be,
Because it's not marked on the plan, which is why I couldn't tell.
Yeah,
It would be helpful
We
to do
can
that.
certainly preserve
yeah,
that.
and we can include it on the plans.
So also on your erosion drawing,
Yep.
it shows a continuous erosion control going across that path area. So that makes me wonder how the water coming down this hill that normally funnels into that paved hill turn, how's that going to make it to the wetland? If you have erosion there that's blocking it,
And we can adjust that on the plans as well to allow
how
that.
do you think you'll do it? What we make an opening? What are you gonna do?
I'm unclear as to what you're asking, I guess.
I want to bring up the erosion.
Sure. I think that's just one more down in the presentation.
Went down, okay.
Yep.
I just gotta, someone just said that they can't hear us, so.
Okay, you see that protrusion where we're talking about the path?
Mhm.
The erosion control goes in a solid line across that path.
Mhm.
The water comes down Longfellow.
Yep.
So won't that erosion control block the water coming down the hill from getting into that little L-shaped paved area?
Yeah, well, we can show, we can adjust that to show an opening. That's also more for construction defense.
Okay, so that your approach would be to just have an opening there? Yeah. Yeah, that was.
We're
what I
not
thought.
doing any work on Longfellow. to protect.
Sure, no, that's good. I just wanted, I didn't understand how the water was gonna flow.
Yep.
That's all the question I have for right now about that area, unless somebody else has any other ones about that area.
Let's, I think you should, go ahead.
The culvert that goes underground.
Mhm.
So if I'm understanding the previous presentation, it's somewhere around here.
So that is the one that ultimately the wetland drains from.
Right.
Into it. I think the culvert that we're talking about at Longfellow Road is to your right on that page.
Walked the site on Monday. I thought somewhere in this area, that water was going underground.
Right, so that's
Yep.
the head wall.
That's the head wall. Yep.
Where does it go?
It connects to right about where your finger. So there's a manhole here. It connects to this manhole here, and then it goes out to the street to here, and then continues up Bancroft.
Thank you.
Yep. So I think that completes the portion of just describing the request for the reduction there, just on the grounds that that area is already disturbed, and we're not encroaching any closer to the wetlands with what we're proposing on the renovations.
The discharge that comes out of the wetland, I was just wondering if you could show us, just like you just did there, or was that the discharge where it's going? Because that water coming from a wetland is jurisdictional, so I was just wondering what culvert that goes in.
The culvert for the
So the discharge from the wetland. where does-
discharge from the wetland?
From it,
Yep, so that's the same place. So this is the head wall.
right.
It
And-
connects,
So it's going in the head wall and it connects to that piece there and then down,
yes,
down through,
Yep.
okay. Do you want to bring up the culvert that needs to be cleaned out? Does anyone want to go there? It's the same spot, that's why I'm just trying to get everything out of the way.
We've mentioned the culvert
sure.
versus the head wall.
Yep.
This is the culvert going underneath the path that goes into the grounds.
Yep.
That culvert is 80% blocked. Theoretically, that should have been maintained over time. So we would expect that to be cleaned out, not as part of this project, not as mitigation for the project, but just in a normal course of things. That does cause ponding, flooding down there, especially to the property to the left. I think it's Martin, I think their name is, but that property tends to flood out. So, anything else on this, or do you have any more to say? Did you have somebody else who's gonna present a piece of this?
Do we want to move to the modular?
Yeah.
Piece?
Sure. So Chuck, if you don't mind going to the last slide. Okay, nope, go back up to one more, right there. There you go. So this here is sort of the joint overall site plan, including the modular units on the right-hand side. There's additional sort of zoomed in area of that shows the grading and everything associated with the modulars as it relates to just that little area, so you can see it a little bit better. But this, I just wanted to point this out. This is how it fits in on the whole site. Modulars are moving over there temporarily for usage as the Killam School is being built. The reason why these are going in sooner than later is because they're doing geothermal drilling before the Killam, and hope to be before the Killam School goes out for construction to speed everything up. So we put this on our NOI to help with the process, to make it efficient and sort of look at it holistically as it fits in. They do have some drainage component to this. There's stone underneath their modulars that's capturing, I think, up to the 2 and the 10. It does go have a 1-foot border around. I believe that's it, with some minor walkways to make it accessible to the handicapper. We do have people that are consultants that are on, if you want to ask any specific questions, or if they want to speak more directly to what's there. But I think if you want to just ask questions, it's probably easier to do a
And then
question
you
and
can
answer, and then
distribute to whoever the best
someone
one.
on the, yeah, exactly.
Okay,
It's sort of not much to it, so.
so a question from the commission.
I'll ask one, I may have others later. Is there a reason why that location was chosen that's inside the jurisdictional area, as opposed to, and the picture just went away, if you look at the Rise Preschool parking area, just the other side, can we go back to the picture we just had, Chuck?
Geez, I wish I had some more time with this new jalopy here.
Okay,
Uh,
well,
but
anyway.
I will go back, but this shows the grading, so maybe we could look at this for a second, just get it in your head, shows the grading. I can go back to this, but this was what Ryan talked about when he said, oh, we have a grading plan, it shows a little more detail. This was it.
Yeah. Okay, this is the picture I was looking at.
Does this work?
That's fine. If you look at the playground, the parking lot, just above the parking lot off the top of this screen, there is a big flat area of grass. There's a baseball diamond to the left, but there's a big chunk of space that's probably big enough for those portables. Why would you do all this grading work rather than putting them on the flat place on the opposite side of the parking lot, closer to the
Joe Huggins is
superintendent's
on.
office?
So
Grab him.
I'll definitely kick it off to facilities and the consultant. I believe it has to do with utility connections, but they can speak to that.
Hey, Joe, did you hear that question? See if Joe's still here. Real close to the baseball. Yeah, he's should be able to speak if he wanted to. Joe Huggins?
Sorry about that. I thought you unmuted me. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, definitely. So the question was, why did you choose this location?
Okay, so there was 2 other locations we looked at, but the location that the modulars are shown right now is because of their proximity to utilities. The other reason is also close proximity to the Rise Preschool program itself. And being able to access them from the building where Rise Preschool, which is right across the roadway, in the basement of the high school.
Joe's the director. Facilities. Yeah, Joe, can you introduce yourself for the record? Just, we didn't get that.
Sure, Joe Huggins, Director of Facilities for the town of Reading.
So,
You have a follow-up?
is there a follow-up on that?
Well, I got my answer, which was about the utilities, because it seemed to me the other side of the parking lot is pretty much equally close to Rise Preschool.
If-
And would
Hey,
not
Meg,
involve.
could I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yep.
And it's kind of hard to see it on what I'm looking at, but we looked at the area. If you go down towards the loading dock at the high school, and there is a flat area right there. It's where the ropes course is, Ryan. Maybe you can show them where I'm talking. Is that the area we're talking about?
Just
right in front of the
before you
ropes
get
course?
to the hill with the ropes course, yeah. There's a
Okay.
big grassy spot.
Yeah, that would be.
Correct. And I believe that's where isn't that the infiltration system for the high school? There's all kinds of manhole covers there. We can't put anything on top of that.
That's correct. In that open area, we have a buried infiltration system there, and there's a portion that's in Majors Field. So, and I don't think there's any proximity to water and sewer there, which these modular units would need.
Okay,
And that would be
Is that on the other
more of a
plan?
considerable distance away, Joe, right, for the walkability for the RISE children, which they're younger, they're preschool age, correct?
Correct.
It's not that terribly far away. That's why they looked at it, but it has to do with the infrastructure that's underneath.
Definitely, I mean, it's a good chance the kids wouldn't get lost with the extra.
No,
distance.
I would hope not.
Otherwise, we teach them the wrong thing. Any other questions?
not me.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I did have another two questions.
Go ahead.
In this diagram or one similar to it, it shows two trees coming out that are like just at the top edge of the modular
Go
classroom.
back to the other one.
I think just this one, even if you zoomed in, it would be
Hmm.
easy to see, but it's,
We're practicing all that this afternoon. So
Let's-
you have to
let's see
bear
if
with
you've-
us, bear with me for sure.
okay. Oh,
All right, so here we are, number 18. And let's go here.
okay. There are two X's, one outside our jurisdiction, one inside the 100-foot line that are pretty much at the top edge of the modular classroom. Yep, that's one. And that's the other. Those look to me like pretty small trees. Is there any way those could be moved rather than just cut down? Are they small enough to be movable?
If, I'd have to check, I'm not familiar with the caliper of that tree, but we can check to see if they're able to be,
It's like 3 inches. It didn't look like that big.
you know, we can certainly check that.
And another one just the same size.
You have another question, Mark?
That's it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Right.
Where the water flows out of the pond, out of the wetland, goes into a culvert, right?
Right.
Okay. Is that a stream? And if it is there riverfront area that needs to be regulated?
I don't believe it would be classified as a stream at that point. You have a wetland discharging directly into a head wall into a closed system. Where it becomes a stream would be down near Castine. If it is classified as a stream, I haven't classified it, so, but I don't believe that area, you're in a riverfront area.
No, I think you're right.
By
I just
definition,
wanted to hear
yeah.
your-
If I can intrude, in the narrative, though, it does call it a stream, although it calls it intermittent stream.
Okay,
In the write-up, it's a stream.
okay,
But I think under the
understood.
Riverfront Act, if it's culverted for more than 200 feet, the riverfront ends with a perpendicular line where the culvert begins. So I don't think the wetland would be within the riverfront.
I
But
would
you may
understand,
wanna-
I would
you may
understand
wanna-
that to be the same way, but we can double check that.
Yeah, I don't think this is riverfront. It's just that whatever comes out the other end is jurisdictional.
That's
Because it
correct.
came out of a wetland.
So when you're saying at the other end is where it comes out at Castine Field.
Yeah.
That's jurisdictional.
Yeah, and it is anyways, but
Yeah.
it's coming from a wetland. And let's say it was in an area where it only had like hydrology and it didn't have vegetation or soils, it's still a wetland because it's coming from a wetland.
Okay, Tony?
That's it for now. Thank you.
Okay. You have anything? I have a few. First, in the narrative, it talks about basically renovating, I forgot what the actual word was, the pickleball court and the basketball court.
Okay.
Now, are the pickleball courts going away?
There will be no pickleball courts on this site.
Okay.
There are 2 basketball courts. Pickleball is being looked at a separate location currently right now, and it's on as an article for town meeting.
Right,
That's not
so
going.
just in the narrative is kind of confusing. It says you're going to renovate those 2 things and you're going to build 2 new basketball courts.
Yeah, I think the intent there was to establish the fact that there's an existing hardscape there and it's being renovated into 2
I
basketball courts.
understand,
as
but
opposed-
that might be something worth cleaning up so it's
Okay.
clear that where there's basketball court and pickleball court, there
Understood.
will be 2 basketball. courts.
Understood.
Okay, how many trees are going to be removed
Entirety on that site?
Yeah.
Okay.
for this
um,
project?
We'll have to follow up.
So to the discussion that happened earlier, there's a grove of trees, center,
Right,
just above the,
yeah, there's 7 in there,
yeah.
and 2 with the
Um,
meters.
Prior to this meeting, we've had the tree warden go out and they, as they do on all of our projects, just to make sure that the trees are healthy. We establish what type of health they're in to make sure. And they would determine that there was several trees there that were rotted through. They did, resistographics on them. And so per the safety, some of those trees have to come down. Once we get a full count on what that is, we'll have a bigger planting plan.
Right, because I noticed that, on the page where it has the X's, it says either a tree or a structure is going to be removed. So I went today to try and discern which is which, and I found in a number of the X spots, there was a tree with a pink ribbon around it.
Okay, so I could speak to that. Those trees with pink ribbons are going to be transplanted on or adjacent to somewhere in this area on the site.
Is
So,
that in your narrative anywhere? That'd be good to know.
it may not be in the narrative. It's something that we looked at with the tree warden to see if we had the ability to transplant.
Mhm.
He felt as though those were two good candidates to do so.
Yeah, I
So.
do remember seeing.
And they're
it too.
smaller, so forestry can do those. There's one other sizable tree over where the parking area is that we are looking into doing a larger transplant with that, with a spade.
Over near which parking area?
The
Bancroft?
parking area right off of Bancroft.
So at the corner nearest Hartshorn?
There's potential that we could shift that. We have access issues for maintenance purposes. That's why we have to speak with the Parks Division to see if we can shrink that down a little bit. And if we can, we might be able to move it, but currently under this condition here, one of the trees that just sits it's kind of hard to see on this plan. I can point it out really quick. It sits in this area. And we've had comments about potentially moving this out to partially to
Okay.
save this tree, but it sits here. It's a larger
I saw
diameter.
that one.
So it would require a specialty company to come in and spade it, take
Okay.
it out.
So there's also this row of trees along Bancroft,
Correct.
and they're on the plan, but they're not marked as either protect or
So-
remove.
So they will be protected as part of the original plan that we showed you to begin with. We reduced a large amount of what we proposed for parking based on what we got feedback from them.
Okay, so if you could put the symbol on it to show that they're protected.
We can certainly do that. Yep, under the
my
construction
concern-
set, we will do that. Yep.
Concern with that was you're gonna be moving the edge of the playground further away, but there's a path going in.
Mhm.
So that my concern was that somewhere they might get damaged.
Oh,
in the
sure.
course of that work, because it's inside the limit of work.
Yeah, so those trees will have protection around them. We'll even have protection to go out as far outside of the drip area that we can. But we'll definitely make that correction on the
So
construction.
you're gonna do two things, board and burlap and do the drip line? If you can.
We'll try to protect as far as we can outside the drip line, the tree
you're
warden
definitely doing
requests
board
that
and
we do
drip line.
that because it helps to not to compress the soil around
So,
them.
so you say you try and do as much as you can, and what would prevent you from going to the drip line?
Depending on how close, like if that actual walkway is within the drip line area to
Oh, they
create,
still would have to work under it.
we would have, exactly.
No, that makes sense. I just,
So we might have to like shift it just to get the pathway in. And
So what I'm trying to get at is you're definitely doing board and burlap. So-
absolutely.
And then if you can, you're gonna do as
We'll
much drip
protect it,
line
with
as
snow
possible.
fencing as
Okay,
much as we can. Yep,
okay.
absolutely. Something similar we did to Birch Meadow. Phase 1.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that there's two methods of determining danger areas. 3 times the width of the trunk, roots turned down, you might be closer in that, doing it that way than the drip line, but different people have different ways of determining what's important.
yeah, well, as long as the trees are protected.
Trees. I mean, the goal here is that we're in a park area, right? So we want to maintain and put more trees in as much as we can. So we're looking to establish as many more trees as we can put in and plantings.
So my next one is a question. It says you're gonna put black mulch around the trees, white black mulch.
Has that been determined that we're gonna do that? No, I don't think that's determined.
And why any kind of mulch? I mean,
I
let it-
don't-
Let it grow in the
To
grass.
be honest with you, it's a maintenance, we probably won't do that.
Okay, so that should be changed in your narrative as well. Let's see. there's drainage pipes shown on one of the plans around the playground area and the courts. And the symbol before solid versus perforated looks very similar. So
Okay.
which of those going to be?
Which,
So let's say the playground first. Is that pipe around it? Is that perforated or solid?
the pipe around the playground would be it,
Within the playground is perforated.
is perforated.
Okay, so that's just to discharge. Okay, and there's one around the court, that's also,
It's a channel drain
Okay.
around the court to collect surface runoff to get into the infiltration
I
system.
thought so from where it was, but like I said, if you look at the symbols in the legend,
Okay.
it basically dashes, and it's like one's maybe a little bit longer than the plan itself.
Sure, we'll take another
We can discern
look at the
useful
line
difference.
types to make sure they're clear for the construction side. Thank you.
So as you're going up, screen, bottom right,
Okay.
so it's along the property, Martin out on Longfellow. There's a number of stakes there that have written on them either sewage or drain, and they have been uprooted either by nature or by human nature. I don't know if that's important to you. I don't know if you were marking anything, you need to get back to the same
No,
spot.
those, we initially did a dig safe mark out for facilities when they kind of narrowed this down to only this little area, which was not too long ago, just to verify the location of the utilities. So that's why you see some of those stakes there. They're probably pushed over because kids walk through the area and that's the first thing they do with those stakes is they push them
That's
over.
what I was.
They're not that critical.
And
We
that's
know
what I
where it
wanted
is,
to
but
know.
we can reestablish them if we need to.
I saw a note on there that there's some educational signage.
Yes.
So I zoomed in to see what it said, and it said educational signage. So I'm wondering what that's
So,
actually gonna say.
the educational signage, we still have yet with recreation to find out what we're gonna do with that, but it will be to the same branding as the signs that we did at phase one, correct?
Yeah, it's something that we would
Yeah.
go and review with Chuck.
But like what kind of?
So,
topic?
in particular, let's say if we put in a certain area that's got some natural planting area on the back edge of the basketball courts, which is what we're doing, right?
Yeah, like the signs.
Well,
we
might
did at
have signs that
Birch
say
Meadow.
what that is.
Okay, so that's good, and that's what I would like to see,
Native
is
plant.
something.
Native plants, and that would be something that we would work with Chuck on the actual language.
Is that within our jurisdiction to regulate?
No, it's our jurisdiction to ask for really heartfeltly.
We did it on phase one. We added signage for that type of stuff.
So on the planting detail page, it's that L3-2, I think it is. Doesn't sound right. Anyway, a number of the trees that are listed are not on the recommended native list. Is there a reason you wouldn't have?
Steve, would you
stuck
like to
that?
speak to that?
We can double check that.
Yeah, I mean, I just,
Does it have to be?
it's recommended.
It's recommended.
No,
So we could
no.
work,
We can revisit it.
yeah, we could work with Chuck and try to determine plantings, and try to get as many natives as we can.
I mean, they're all native.
Go ahead with the
Are there
cultivar.
any in particular you're concerned
I
about?
think,
Yeah.
I think what you're talking about is cultivar versus non-cultivar, right?
Well, that's a different thing, but yes,
yeah.
that is mandated by us.
Yeah.
is That we want true natives, not cultivars. But second one from the top. Then says, what's the first, was that the blank? Right. So what?
Amalank here.
I'm not sure, but there were several on the trees part of it and a couple on the shrub listing. So I was just doing quick comparisons.
Okay.
I just was doing pattern recognition. Okay, and we received some letters from the public, and there were a couple of notes of interest I wanted to follow up on. One said that it's the writer's understanding that the school superintendent said to consider these modular classrooms as permanent versus temporary. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, Joe's on the call, he can speak to that. I think the intent that they said is that these will be used administratively after RISE is completed. I don't know if it's a permanent foundation that's under these. Joe can speak to that.
Yeah, this is Joe Huggins again. The modulars, like we talked about before, will be used for Rise Preschool for the next probably 3.5 years. And then the intent was to potentially use them for either instructional space or for office space in the high school, from the high school.
So we should consider them as permanent, essentially, because they're gonna be there for a long time at least.
As long as they last. Yes.
I guess,
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
per-
nothing permanent.
right.
Okay,
And what is the foundation?
okay. You want to talk about the foundation?
I briefly know, I think it's on stilts for foundation, there's no poured foundation, and it sits on gravel and stone, but, do we have any of the engineers there that can speak to that particular detail?
Yeah, maybe Imelda from GNAP would mind weighing in on that. Okay, maybe not.
No, I didn't know that she was part of this, so you can speak now, just introduce yourself for the record.
Hi, I'm Imelda Barnhurst. I'm from GNAP Architects. We're the architects on the projects. Also on this call is Joe Paznola from Hancock Associates, who was the civil engineers for the modular portion. So the building is on basically sonotubes, so it's not a footing.
Sonotubes, all right.
You good with that?
Yeah, I am.
Not your turn yet, so just one question. Let's see, so another comment that we got was that it was the author's understanding that there was an agreement put in place at the time of the construction, saying there would be no additional structures adjacent to parking areas. Do you have any knowledge about that?
I heard that same comment. We did try to look into that. We have no recollection or evidence of that. I've been around long enough, but I haven't been around that long, to know if that actually was an agreement or if it was something that was talked about at town meeting as, whatever.
that's
We don't
something-
have anything that we have in writing that says that's. the
Is there some additional place you could look into that? or
Yeah, so
it's a dead end?
we've requested the clerk's office to go back in some of the archives to see if there's anything that we've scanned in for Laserfiche that might trigger there. We're looking into the registry of deeds to see if there's anything in the deed. We didn't see anything on the deed itself. And so they'll go back and they'll look at whatever minutes they have or whatever to see what that discussion was.
I understand that's not a conservation purview.
No,
thing.
but yeah, we are aware of it and we will look into it.
So my last topic has to do with mitigation, and I know you talked about mitigation from the perspective of water infiltration and what have you, and that's all well and good. But at least from my perspective, and the commission obviously can weigh in on it, I would be looking for additional mitigation. Something along the line of more plantings, maybe trees. The area where it said the stakes are pulled up.
Sure.
I know we've lost trees down that area over the years. So some kind of additional mitigation, getting ideas from these folks as well. But while the mitigation you talk about is all well and good, I'm thinking of something more than that.
So the, just to get you thinking about it,
Yeah,
so we had this big conversation of where does the discharge from the wetland go? Oddly enough, we found out that it goes right to Castine Field.
Right,
It is a
so,
conservation project.
right, so his point is that theoretically it's in the same watershed, so we could ask for some mitigation over there because it's connected hydrologically, I guess.
I think we need to also think about the whole project
Yeah.
and mitigation at the same
I
time.
just wanted to let you know that that's something that I at least would be looking for. I clearly don't have any useful concrete ideas yet, but something like that. And that is a good idea. It's a good point. All right, that's the last point I wanted to make.
To what extent are we talking mitigation?
know how many plants or?
But, well, again, the problem is I don't even know there's plants. I just know we want something. For example, and I'm not saying you do this, but for example, on a recent project, there was no good mitigation that could be done on their site. So they have agreed to build a bridge at Sturgis Field. I'm not saying go build the bridge, but I'm saying some mitigation, some other work you could do that would help us in that watershed. And I want these folks to think about it so we can have an idea of what makes sense that gets some value for the, for conservation in town.
My turn.
Is anybody down or go let him loose?
I did have a question about the tot lot.
Sure,
Um,
go ahead.
I noticed right now there's all the black chips get kicked out through the fence. What surface are you planning to do and what's the reason why it needs to be renovated?
So let's start with the surface. The rubber mulch, we're getting away from rubber mulch. It goes everywhere. We don't like it. It's a maintenance issue, gets into the wetlands area. It's just not something we like to have. What this will turn into is a poured in place surface, rubber surface. It gets away from wood chips and it still has a safe enough surface that they can play on that's resilient. So that would take care of any of those rubber chips that come flying out and nothing would, leach out. So that answers the question for the surfacing.
If I could follow up on that. So how long will that surface last and how would we just disposed of end of life?
20 years, 25 years. So 15, 20 years, and when it got to that point, we would probably come back for another project or whatever and either strip off, they can grind it and resurface it right there. And
But is there any known way to recycle it or is it just going to landfill somewhere?
I'd have to look that up. I know I could talk to you about crumb rubber that comes out of like certain areas. You can send it out to be recycled. It gets stored in a facility until there's a means to recycle it, but it's got a bill of lading on it that says it's gonna be recycled. That's for like crumb rubber. Retire mulch is a different story. It goes back to a facility that sent it through a cryo process that chops it up probably into crumb rubber or whatever other use.
The other main reason for the surfacing is accessibility.
Correct.
MASD doesn't recognize rubber mulch or wood mulch as an accessible.
Yeah, I don't have a
surface.
problem with getting rid of what's there currently. I'm just wondering, are we buying future problems by whatever the decision is now?
Fair enough question. I don't believe we know of any future issues with the board in place rubber surfacing. Again, to what Steve was talking about, that was my last point. Reason why we're renovating. This is not an accessible playroom. So that type of surfacing allows it to be accessible. And then hence why we have those accessible parking spaces here as well.
That makes sense. Anything else?
Thank you.
All yours.
Sure, if I could add anything to that, we use that in Arlington, and we use it in Arlington in all areas outside of conservation areas. But where it is used, it's for the same exact reason, it's accessible, and the only fault that I have seen on it is that they accumulate problems and then fix them all at once. So I don't know, like,
Yeah,
facilities couldn't fix a piece that got ripped off. They gotta get a company back out to fix that. And so it usually ends up waiting, and then they fix
Major
it.
rework. Yeah.
But outside of that, it's great for, where I've seen.
So if you don't use that in conservation areas in Arlington, what do you use?
So we just simply don't use that in the conservation areas, and our recreation department doesn't propose it, so it's unlike what's happened here. So,
And does that give you ADA issues?
no, so the areas that are within our jurisdiction, they use like wood chips and all that. So, and if they had to do some ADA issues, it would be outside of our jurisdiction. So,
Anyway, back to you for questions.
yeah.
Now that our questions.
Arlington's not exactly built the same way. We don't have too much out there as far as resource areas. I had a question about the stormwater. I was wondering if we were gonna get a stormwater checklist, and I noticed when I was looking through this, that one of the engineers used Cornell extreme precipitation standards and someone else used TR 55.
Okay.
And I was gonna ask you, what, I know we talked and like as colleagues about bringing the standards up. What does the town ask for right now? Because we all wanted to ask for the same thing.
We can-
Conservation planning.
We can run these at the Atlas 14 and see what they are.
Is that what you're, I know it's not in our.
It's not,
regulation now, but.
you know, the unfortunate thing is, they're not a requirement, it's something that that's what we look at. We could certainly run those at the Atlas 14, to see what the mitigation or what it looks like on the site that we're looking at now for the Birch Meadow. To the maximum extent practical, we do have a separation of groundwater issue that it's hard to deal with, plus the utilities that are there. So the size of what you're seeing there probably won't get any bigger, in terms of what we can put in, at least on the Birch Meadow.
And also sounded, so when you look at the stormwater report, it doesn't incorporate the area, and I'm sure it would be easy enough just to do that, where the modular classrooms are going. And so that might be something to look at also.
That
just
was,
kind of catch up. And I know this came in quickly.
yeah, that was looked at. So the modular area was looked at, individually, and Joe from Hancock is
Joe
here.
provided a memo.
Right, he could speak to, I can't speak to what was
Well,
done on his
Yeah,
end.
no,
Sure.
I would-
I can,
Sure, hold on, Joe.
Okay.
I would prefer to get just the stormwater checklist for that area at least,
Okay,
and maybe one for this area, and have everything kind of like looked at with the same standard, because Joe used Cornell and used TR 55, and you're saying maybe Atlas 14.
yeah, I mean, I could tell you right now, we look at Atlas 14 and, you know, our reduction rates are probably, I mean, they'll be similar, but you're gonna see a lot more post runoff anyway, regardless in the existing conditions versus in the proposed conditions that'll just go up because the rate of runoffs is the same.
And I'm
But
not
we'll
really.
look at it. We can certainly look at that. We'll go through the checklist. It's pretty easy enough for us to go through the checklist. We can do that.
I'm not looking for a one-off, because I'd like the commission to know, well, every time someone comes in here, we're supported by the engineering department, and we always look at the Atlas 14. That would be great, but we're not there yet. But at least these two, between Cornell and TR 55, maybe we can.
Yeah, we'll coordinate those two. Again, they came in as kind of last minute as two separate projects. We're trying to make this as efficient and holistic as possible for the commission. But we can run those under the same standard rainfall frequencies.
So Joe, sorry I interrupted you. Please just introduce yourself for the record.
sure. Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates. So we looked at the modular classroom just because we wanted to join this this notice of intent and keep it as simple as possible. We're looking at it as if we are kind of invisible. We really just have roof drainage here. Roof drainage doesn't need treatment, doesn't need to be treated before it goes back into the ground. So we very simplistically and very conservatively looked at just putting the roof drain leaders into the stone underneath the modular classrooms. So there's a foot of stone underneath that has a void ratio that will accept up to 10 inches of rainfall, or actually 4 inches of rainfall. I'm sorry, 4 inches of rainfall, which is the 10-year storm when you look at Cornell, and that's without any infiltration considerations. So it's very, very conservative, and again, trying to be kind of invisible and not impacting the hydrology or the stormwater calculations for the parks area. I mean, it's a very simple site plan. We just need to elevate the back of it to get ourselves a flat pad, put stone down and bring the unit in and slide it into place. But certainly we can coordinate and make sure that we are we are fully coordinated between the two projects.
Yeah, that would be great. I agree that, and I know that you've, have a lot of experience in this area and worked with you in the past on another project, but I'd just like to have that documented and in the file. So that's most of and then clean up some of the inconsistencies. So that's all I'm
Sure.
asking. Thank you.
Anything else?
No.
Anybody have any last questions before we go to the public? Okay, so now we'll go to the general public. We'll start first with any online questions and then we'll come to the room. Having said that, do you see anybody?
I don't, but you want to use the raise hand function, the reaction button, and use the raise hand function to get our attention.
Give you 12 seconds.
Let me see. I don't see anyone. Most of the people on here, most of the
Okay,
people on
that's
here.
fine. Is there anybody in the room who has anything they need to say, want to say? Can you come up to the podium and please introduce yourself?
Evening, Dave Sweeter, Precinct 7, and a neighbor of the project. So, Joe, if I understand correctly, you're going to take the roof drainage from the portable trailers and put it into the subgrade storage area below the modules? Is that correct? So that's-
Yes, it's essentially a trailer on stilts. It's 2.5 feet up in the air. So we're building a raised concrete pad in front to access the front door and have handicap accessibility, and then there's a wooden deck and stair on the back. So it's an elevated structure up in the air that'll be on concrete piers, but everything else under the modular unit and for 1 foot around will just be a bed of crushed stone.
So it'll be more of a storage area, and in fact, the water will not flow to the wetlands through the culvert that we discussed earlier?
Correct.
And you've got calculations to support that, I assume?
Yes.
And the impervious surface walkway, that drainage will move.
Some of it will go into the parking lot, and some of it will go into that stone area.
Okay. And I'm just trying to get a feel for the total life of this structure on site. Any ideas? We heard 3.5 years maybe for RISE, and the remainder is an office complex until its life expires, which might be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. They're mobile homes, they're trailers. You're moving into my neighborhood, thank you, but
These things already have some life on them, but
I'm just trying to come up with a life.
so you might ask Joe Huggins to answer that.
Joe, if you had any ideas on that, Joe Huggins, that would be helpful.
Yeah, the modulars were installed over at Killam in 2014, so they're 11 years old. I believe, if they're taken care of well, they have a 25 to 30 year lifespan, just to be quite honest with you.
And do we have a provision to remove that once it exceeds its life?
We have removed modulars.
During its life? Nothing worse than my neighborhood than having, a fresh shack or trailer home.
Well, as long as I'm here, that would never happen.
It's not a conservation issue, and I apologize to the Conservation Commission for that, but
We did have the modulars that were at the Birch Meadow Elementary School that we removed from the school back in 2008. When they got to the end of their useful life, we got rid of them. I can't tell you how long they were over there, but our goal is to maintain the equipment and the property. So when it's at the end of the road, definitely they'll be disposed of. But I probably won't be here at that point.
probably me neither. Thanks, Joe. So the other thing that I would caution conservation on would be material stockpile storage and how that's going to be maintained. For both projects, my home on Hartshorn and Bancroft and traffic that's going to be bringing that down, vehicle traffic that brings that down. Once it comes there, where's it gonna store? Unfortunately, the modular complex and the park complex didn't coordinate well together. And now they're kind of conflicting and arguing with each other for storage space.
So you guys, I know you have some detail on stockpiling in your plans. Could one of you speak to that?
So that's all I've got. Thank you much.
I don't know who would be most appropriate for that.
I can speak to it with some backup. Ryan Percival, town engineer. You want to go to some of the plan,
Yeah, sorry.
the overall plan?
Trying to do that. Let's see, here we go.
So while Chuck's doing that, I'll just speak to some of the background on that. The original plan prior to the modulas having to be rushed over for timeline purposes for the Killam School was to use a majority of, maybe from half that parking lot up on the Rise Playground parking lot for our storage. When we learned of the project needed to move up for the modulars, or that the modulars were being relocated for the Killam project, we had a conversation with both our consultants and Joe and myself and Keenap and Hancock to coordinate the two constructions of these, because we knew they were going to overlap. So we immediately had a meeting once we realized there was going to be an issue here. We got to the point where we have to keep into consideration that while school is out of session, we may have a little bit more area to use. However, when school comes in session is it around end of August, beginning of September, Joe, that these go live with students?
Correct.
Okay, so during that time period, they'll need that full aisle width to drop children off. So we are now, when I say we, the Birch Meadow Park project are going to be confined to the westerly side of that Rise Playground, just those spaces only.
And it's probably a little bit more time constrained, assuming teachers need to get in there sometime ahead of time.
Right, and so since we have a lower stockpile area, we'll try to stockpile whatever we can in that area. Additionally, we may or may not have to use some of the parking spaces that are close to on Bancroft, knowing that might be an option for us, or we may have to do that. We'll have all stormwater mitigation as far as erosion control and things like that. We'll make sure we have silt sacks and everything to confine that in there. It won't be in the travel way. We can't do that. We can't obstruct the travel way. We do know that we're going to have to access that playground area from, at least with some machinery, off of the flatter area, because it does dip down off the Rise Playground from Bancroft. So you're talking like, I don't know, loaders or excavators, whatever, will have to get in from that area. Once they're on site, they'll stay on site. They won't really move too far.
So I'm gonna ask a different question. So this is primarily
3 months.
tied to the future for Killam?
Correct. My understanding, and anyone on the call can correct this, but I'm pretty comfortable that this is the reason, is that these modules sit currently at Killam School. They need to be moved ahead of time to help accelerate the timeline for the construction of Killam School if Killam School passes. The reason being is there's geothermal wells that do have to be constructed in that area. So
That is my question,
Yes.
though, is what if the Killam article doesn't get passed? Does this move still happen?
I believe if the Killam School article does not pass, this isn't realized as a
And it
project.
goes back to the courts and the playground.
I think, yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak to the strategy of the Killam School and where the MSBA sits and all that, but probably go back to another pass at town meeting, my
Okay.
guess would be. But in the meantime, if this doesn't pass, this project isn't realized.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room that I can't see? Any questions? Hey, can you please come forward and introduce yourself? I see
Chuck,
that
you
hand.
do have it online.
Yeah, all right, let them know. So, yeah, we have Carl. when you have a second, yeah.
Why don't you come up first? Carl, I'll get you in a minute.
Okay.
Hi, so I'm Annie Sullivan. I live on Longfellow Road. And I have 3 questions.
Yeah.
Charles, you said that use the same type in Arlington, the same type of playground ground cover. And I was wondering, when sections of that, you said something happens to it, it piles up until it needs to be all fixed. Does that have to get cordoned
I
off?
didn't mean it piled up, but if there's some damage on it, so I've seen damage when it's like butted up against a, I'm gonna say like a threshold, like a stone granite threshold, like just before some stairs or around, a pipe that came out of the ground or something like that, and they've not fixed those for a while. We had some on Spy Pond, there was a spot that wasn't fixed for a long time until.
Did that have to get cordoned off? Was that usable?
No, it was just a small little repair. I think anything big that would happen would bring them back, but it was from the size of, like my hand,
Okay,
so
okay.
something like that, just a small corner.
Thank you. And then I also was wondering, so I have two questions. I was wondering about what the grading is on that path that's going to Longfellow Road, because that's a pretty short, steep hill from the parking lot in the high school is pretty high, and then the basketball court is quite low. So I don't quite understand how that path grading would work and how that would affect
It's
drainage.
accessible. The pathway itself will be accessible, which so 5%. Yeah.
Okay, I was just wondering about, like, is it a steep hill from Longfellow up, or is
No.
it?
Once you get past the tree line, it starts gradually
Okay.
getting up to the parking lot level.
So is it like a,
Excuse me a second. I would ask if you're going to be answering questions, can you come to the podium so people in TV land can see?
should I just say my other question first, or should I come back?
Why don't you finish up this topic and then go to your third?
Okay, that was just sort of an open question, but I don't.
Like
how
the- this
it's gonna
going
work. So,
This is the hill.
Okay, then why don't you go with your third question then?
This is the
my other question was just about, I wanted to ask about whether we were gonna talk at all for the Conservation Commission. I don't know if you guys cover this, like the lighting that's being added, that looks like it's in the wetland buffer zone. That's also just an open-ended thing I wanted clarification on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Carl.
Yes, hello.
Oh,
All right, so I'm at 68 Longfellow Road, so I basically,
Hold on, Carl.
hang on, Carl, 1
I
second.
need to clarify, be speaking as an associate member or as
It's
a
a good
resident?
question. So
Oh,
Chuck's
yes.
point is that Carl is actually an associate member of the commission. So Carl, are you speaking as a commission member or as a resident? And either way, can you introduce yourself, please?
yes, I'm speaking as a resident. So I'm Carl Ciccone at 68 Longfellow Road. So I'm basically abut the basketball court, like kind of southwest. So yeah, I do have a few questions. I just wanted to kind of get on the record here. So I'll start with the existing wetland buffer, this little half acre to the southwest that's between my house and the basketball court. I've lived here for about 8 or 9 years now, and I've basically witnessed this wetland that, from what I understand, 20 years ago wasn't quite so wet, but since the high school has become quite wet, fall apart. I've had 3 trees fall into my yard. The trees are all dying. I'm not sure what's going on over there. So I am worried that whatever's happening here with the new path, the grading to the parking lot, the new modular system, is just more water going to flow in there, which seems like that's not great. So now with the modular possibility of the structure going there, I think that's just, again, now more, I know we're going to collect the water, but we all know what happens in 10 years. Does that really keep functioning properly? Have we thought about screening, because it's becoming so thin there? I mean, this is sort of a bias because, of course, I live so close, but you can just kind of see directly through the park for 6 months out of the year with the added lights. Now, this kind of, someone mentioned trailer home type thing. My kids go to Birch Meadow, so I know what it looks like. Is there any room for some screening or natives to go in there as a mitigation or something? I missed that part. I tried to jump on as fast as I could. Lighting is a definite issue. I've gone to the town, but the tennis courts just are on until New Year's, with no one there until 10, 11 o'clock at night. There's no timer, there's no sensor, there's no button or switch. It's so odd. Just from again, me living near it and also like an efficiency standpoint. So now I'm nervous that the basketball courts is going to be lit till 10 o'clock at night with no one playing, which is, I think, not great. Also from the wetland perspective, that tennis court is so bright. And now if the basketball court's 30 feet from the tree line, what's that going to look like? I think that's pretty much everything. Yeah. So just some screening, what's happening with the water. I know it's probably all planned out, and then lighting. And if there's maybe this is a good question for Chuck. I mean, is there any look at the existing wetland that's there and what the health is of the wetland and what will happen when this is done? I think that's a concern of mine.
Okay, Carl, thanks.
Yeah.
You want to speak to any or all of those? I'll go to that corner. Let you guys figure it out.
Steve Crisfulli with Activitas. So grading first, as far as the walkway and off grading and wetness. Any questions, concerns with that walkway? Again, that came up early on with the town with meeting. It was a suggestion to make a connection to that street. It is clearly a connection to the park, so making it paved made sense. We don't have to pave it if it makes more sense to keep it natural. Just throwing that out there. Screening, we are proposing a native seed mix that will incorporate some shrubs, and it'll give a little bit of screening to maybe a 5-6 foot level on some of those plants. As far as planting trees, we're kind of limited between the courts and the wetland with DPW and the town wanting to maintain a level of clear span to access behind the courts for utilities, trees, whatever. So we are trying to maintain a 10-foot clear space. Lights, the lights at the tennis courts are the older metal halide technology. The lights that we're proposing for the basketball courts are lower LED, almost zero cutoff. So there will be far less glare. In comparison, the lights at Turf 2 and the stadium, you can clearly see the difference of that black, cutoff from the sky. The lights on the pathway are dark sky compliant from same lights that we used in phase 1, which was a requirement from CPDC conservation. If you go down to the next slide, shows the heat map. That purple is 0 to 0.2 foot candles or to 2 foot candles. That's not accounting for any vegetation, which obviously would cut that down. They can't model it.
So 2 things. Tony, do you have anything you want to follow up with that?
You mentioned dark sky compliance, so they're downward directed, what else?
Offhand, I cannot remember all of the requirements for dark sky compliant. It has to do with the warmth, volt, everything. We can follow up with that, but we spent a good amount of time finding fixtures.
Can I just add one thing?
Sure, Carl, go ahead.
Just wondering, you mentioned technology. So I've seen other parks around other towns, so they just come on automatically? Does someone push a button? Like, what is it? Just, the tennis courts just come on and they stay on with no one there. Is that just how it works? So they're just on till 10 o'clock at night if no one's playing, basically?
That's a programming decision by the town and recreation. They can be set by schedule. They can be turned on remotely by anyone who has access, whether it's rec, whether it's someone renting the courts.
Mhm.
So that would be more of a recreation.
Okay.
And I believe we did talk about that earlier on, that due to the nature of the sound of a basketball versus a tennis ball, that we were thinking 9 o'clock. I'll let Jim speak to that.
Jim Sullivan, Recreation Director for the town of Reading. Yeah, right now the tennis courts, I've been here 2 years. They come on at sunset and then they go off at 10 o'clock. Right now, I don't have any control directly over it. I have to go into Musco and we set our calendar basically from spring. And I don't think they've ever gone until New Year's. They haven't since I've been here. It's typically close to Thanksgiving or until first snow. With these new courts, I think they do have some technology where there is a timing system where there's a cutoff, say at 9 o'clock. As Ryan just mentioned, 10 o'clock might be okay for tennis, but if you're living on, say, Longfellow Road and kids are playing basketball till 9:50 at night, I think it's a little much. So if anything, I'd probably have a cutoff at 9 o'clock. But I would definitely look into the technology as far as the basketball courts go. If nobody's using them, it's 2 courts. So I believe they have mechanisms where it's a switch or a timer. You can flip over. It goes on for a half hour, then it can
Right.
shut off.
Yeah.
As well. The tennis courts, it's a little more difficult because of the way the lights are set up. If someone's playing on one court, you kind of need all those lights on to make sure that it's a safe.
Yeah,
so-
and those things are kind of grandfathered in. I just figured I'd mention, since this is new, is there a way that could happen? That's all.
Yeah, and I think with this new system, I probably have access to my phone as well, where I can turn them off and on. I know the new ones at the Turf 2 and Stadium, it can be controlled right from your phone. So I'd be looking to do that as well. But I think having some kind of mechanism where you hit a button, it comes on for a half hour, goes off if no one's there automatically. You
Yeah.
just have that stop time at 9 is what I'd be looking to do.
Yeah, that seems fair. I get it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have one thing to say, just on Carl's behalf. If you're thinking of a 5 or 6 foot shrub is helping him from a screening perspective, his house lies up the hill a bit. The light's gonna go right over that, so don't plan on that. You're welcome, Carl.
No, but I was just trying to paint the picture on
I
the tree
understand, I
issue.
just didn't want you to be thinking. shrub.
And the other thing, just going back to that mitigation conversation earlier, we're happy to plant more trees. I know you guys need to discuss that and figure that out. Just keep in mind, this site in particular, it's a kind of a bowl of spaghetti out there of utilities. So it's very tight, it's gonna have to be very strategic on where and what we can plant.
Right, so I think there'll be give and take on, we come up with something we'd like to see, and you can talk about pros and cons of whatever that is.
Yep.
Okay. Any more questions from the room? I don't think there's anybody left. Okay, so sounds like there's clearly a number of things to get back to us on. Do you want to go over the list of what you have?
Include the pop-up bench in the plan. Clean the culvert, as you mentioned. Someone wants to check out whether the 2 trees near the classroom, the modular classrooms, can be moved. Tree protection at Bancroft and bag and burlap around the trees. And then drip trench if you can manage it. Mulch, that was your question. Is it, you want a reasoning behind the
I
mulch?
think they've already said they're not going to use it, so
But
at this point,
I
let's
was-
just update the narrative.
I guess I was unclear on that. You don't want mulch? It's also for
Yeah, I prefer
moisture control.
not
for-
only no mulch, but especially black mulch.
So it's the color?
It's the dye in the mulch.
Yes. No, I don't.
So yes, it's a
address
color
that.
indirectly.
Okay.
There were a few other things in the narrative. I'm
yes.
looking to update.
I would list, and then you can add
Okay.
whatever I missed. So is the stormwater checklist, and then correlating how you evaluated whether it was Cornell extreme storms or it was PR 55. I don't know why I wrote that, but no additional clerk's office. Does that ring a bell to anyone?
I know that.
What was that?
We were talking about looking for, trying to
Oh.
announce that information to whether or not there was. not that
No
it's in the
additional
purview of the
structures.
commission, But it was something we're.
On a previous agreement, yeah.
So I noticed that, so it would be nice to know where the clear limit of work are, especially next to the conservation area. And I would add to that, if we're gonna talk about planting and you're gonna allow us to make some suggestions or ask for additional planting, to show us where we can. I mean, you said Mike wants 10 feet, so I would think closer would work or all the way along that edge. That would also help the people on Longfellow. We added some plants in that area. So anyways, there's some more questions about planting. Construction entrance, we wanted to know what that was. But I think you'd have to run that through the property because we definitely want to make sure that they're using that spot all the time. So construction entrance and pathway, so it's not going behind the tennis courts or the basketball court as they are now. And then I'm gonna check on the Arlington question about board in place and what's used, but I'm not gonna. To my knowledge, it all worked out. Then the light spillage, I did have the photometrics up there. It looked like it was 0, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it. But I was wondering if it was what was up there before in the purple. I think it did spill into the wetland area and all that. I think the Conservation Commission would be concerned about when the lights are off and on and what seasons and all that there too. I talked about stormwater, visual screening, dark sky compliant requirements. They're all asked for. And then we had a condition that came up, which would be the lights would be shut off at 9 o'clock. And I think that's related to conservation, although lighting is not conservation, but you know, the disruption
Right.
through patterns of,
Impact on the
it
habitat.
does connect in that way. So I don't know if there are any others, I can write them down.
There were just a number of updates to the narrative to make things clear, like 2 basketball courts.
Yes.
Nothing deal breaking.
Nothing, yes. Yes.
I had one more, and this is for Joe and Hancock. I don't think we have a detail of the crushed stone area underneath the modular classroom. And if we could just have that, like the depth, the width, so we know what you're building and we can make sure that that's what was designed. Again, it's just a paper trail to understand what we're approving.
And removing non-native plant species from the planting schedule.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Okay. And cultivar not.
Sorry?
The cultivar question too, just non-natives.
Well, there's a few that are Eurasian, Australian species. Those ought to come off the list of the planting schedule.
Do we want true natives?
I think they had true natives for the most part.
Okay.
Except for the elm, but I can make a special condition for the elm.
Okay, any other things that we
So I,
haven't said that need a continuance? Any idea how long you would want to continue for?
Next available meeting.
All right, so that's the 23rd of April. All right, so can I have a motion to continue this to April 23rd?
Move to continue the
oh,
hearing.
there's one thing here, in the chat. Do we read chats? I'm not sure. Do you want me to just read this chat?
Sure.
Anyway, comment on the depth of the work that has been completed. I'm concerned about the accessibility of the playground, the pathway, as current conditions do not meet any standards for access. Look at the ground cover and the playground alone. The ADA standards are quite clear, and I hope there are more public sharing of specific designs of this area, including the playground pathway within the seating areas. So it just looked like more discussion on the ADA. How are you meeting the
So-
ADA requirements, and what did you do to change it from what's there
Right.
now to now?
So what I heard was they want us to meet the ADA requirements. That's a request. We are meeting ADA requirements for accessibility off of the handicap accessible parking, straight onto the walkway, straight onto the playground area, which is not compliant currently.
and the equipment.
And the equipment as well will also
Some
be
of the equipment
accessible,
Will be inclusive.
Which-
100%.
that's complete upgrade from what's there now.
Okay,
Does that
Having
answer that
said-
question?
having said that, can I have a motion for continuance to the 23rd?
Move to continue the hearing for the Birch Meadow Park Phase 2 modular 10, next meeting of April 23rd.
Walter Talbot seconds it, and Walter Talbot's in favor.
Tony Rotalakis.
Michelle in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor. Okay, thank you, everyone,
Thank you.
for the nice short hearing.
Sorry. That's our fault. So
Yeah,
Great comments, thank you.
so moving on to 885 Main Street. The topic this evening has to do with the third-party consultant. Chuck, do you want to talk about the status of any proposals we received?
Yeah, so we only sent one out. We received a proposal from Horsley Witten. It's on the screen now. It's for $3,200. I asked Ryan Percival and Andrew McNichol to review this because planning has reviewed stormwater under our new bylaw a couple of times. And this is our, so I wanted to make sure that they agreed with what's being looked at here. And I also asked Ryan, because he usually does the stormwater review for the town. And they both agree that what was on here met their requirements and went above their usual review. So it's $3,200. I've already sent it to the applicant, who sent it to, I guess it's a conglomerate that owns these places, and they were waiting for a check at this point.
So we need to vote,
They wanted to jump the gun and send the check, even though I told them we didn't vote on it.
we need to vote to make it official.
Yep.
So are there any conversation first? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve this third-party consultant?
I move to approve the proposal for third-party consultant stormwater at 885 Main Street, in the amount of 32, what was it, 3,200?
$3,200.
Walter Talbot seconds the motion. Walter Talbot's in favor.
Tony Rotalakis in favor.
Michelle in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Okay, good. Next one, 695 Pearl Street.
Quick.
1 minute hearing.
It's all the time they get. 695 Pearl Street.
So this is also under, so at the last meeting, we approved a third-party review on the resource areas. We hired, I got a check and we hired LEC to do that. And I met Rich Kirby out in the field yesterday in the rain. And so,
I got there, it was sunny.
oh yeah,
True,
yeah.
it's snowing.
Crazy day. But so Rich looked at the flags and he is going to have some comments for Norse Environmental. And there's a couple of spots that we thought needed to be reviewed, specifically in the backyard, and to explain the connection that crosses Pearl Street. So he's gonna put a memo together. I haven't got that yet. We'll send it off to Maureen. Most likely Maureen will have to review it. They'll have to go back out, pick up the flags that Rich put in place, and then put some more flags in around whatever's in the backyard. And those will have to be surveyed in. So we
So-
probably won't be back at our next meeting either, but I would say anyone listening, they should stay tuned. But it's highly unlikely all that can happen in 2 weeks.
So the assumption was that at applicant's request, we would continue to 23rd. Should we actually do that? No, we may have to continue again, or should we make it to the meeting after that?
It is continued to the 23rd. We did that at the last meeting.
Oh, well, there you go.
And then we just leave it at that. And if they come in,
We have to, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that case, nothing more to do.
I have one question.
Figures.
Is Rich gonna look at all for evidence of vernal pool organisms in that area?
he did. but he's gonna put his thoughts together and put them down on a piece of paper. So that was part of our request.
Thank you.
I apologize. So then that one is all set, and that is our last hearing of the evening. Sure.
So, my name is Richard Keel. I'm a new resident at 692 Pearl Street, just across the street from 695. Just moved in about a month ago. Tough market. They don't really give you a lot of time to figure out what your surroundings are. Right? So we looked at the house over the weekend, been tough. And the realtors that were selling the property, they told us that, you could build your dream backyard. But when I looked at the house, there's obviously a major concern. I got some damn big trees right across, right in the backyard, one right on the driveway, right at the entryway of that intermittent stream brook.
Yeah.
They showed us the GIS map. No signs of wetlands. Of course, the day I'm making an offer, I reach out to Charles, Mr. Taroni here. And he got back to me an email, and I appreciate you doing that. Well, offers were due at 12. I didn't have a whole lot of time to figure this out. I was very close to pulling the offer, but I didn't know what the next step was gonna be. Or, chances are you're gonna lose it anyway, so I'm gonna go forward. So I told my realtor, just keep it going through, and I talked to Mr. Taroni shortly after. That's when I get the bad news. There's wetlands. And my land is about it's over, I'm over 100 feet buffer. So what Mr. Taroni mentioned to me is that brook that's in question. And the possibility that there could be wetlands there, and it's under review right now. So now I'm a little nervous because I do have a lot of big trees. Mr. Taroni was on the property. It wasn't supposed to be. I got in trouble for it, to be honest with you. I didn't tell the realtors. Hadn't closed yet. But he came to the property. I invited him on there. And there's some major concerns. One of the trees on the driveway had an arborist come over the other day. He says there's a butt crack from here all the way down to the base. He goes, it's probably happened within the last 8 months. And he says he's surprised it hasn't fallen yet. There's only an area above my house that has sunlight, and all the trees are going towards the house. And quite frankly, for the amount of money I spent for a 1,700-foot square home, it's pretty sad. I don't really want to deal with the financial hardship of a damn tree falling on my house. Not only that, I got neighbors too.
So
But I'm gonna go on to 695 because I'm also concerned about additional runoff going into that intermittent stream. And I can understand, because I'm experiencing it now, that people are gonna try to get away or not spend a whole lot of money to get things right. And, I may not get a lot of water on my side, but there's that wetland I'm worried about is going to expand for the other neighbors as well, which could also affect me.
Okay, so you heard what our process was tonight. We basically continued.
Yeah.
We couldn't talk about it anyway, and certainly not
Yep.
without the applicant being present.
That's fine.
You're aware that things like stormwater handling would be considered when and if the project moves forward. And I would suggest at that point, it would be the time you come in and register your concerns again, especially once you've seen, and we've seen a plan, and once we've seen the report from the third-party
Right.
reviewer as to what the implications are. Because there's so many unknowns right now.
Oh, trust me, there's a lot of unknowns.
I
Just like
hear
the
that.
unknown of a tree coming down on my house.
So I recognize
You know,
you're in a hard space time-wise. We can't address that tonight.
No, that's fair, but I like to start new business too. And when does that come up?
It should come up at the end of the meeting, but you can take it anytime as soon as we finish with the hearings.
And we finished with the hearings. So New business, well, technically, things are supposed to be submitted to Chuck, which ahead of
Fine,
time,
yes.
so we can hear what you're having to say. Depending on what the topic even is, we may not be able to draw any conclusions, but please go ahead and sit on your situation.
Yeah, well, obviously I have a tree situation. You know, because the trees range, there's 25 of them.
Hang on a second, you guys, can you?
Sorry.
They're all around from 15 to 30, 60 feet away from the house. They're all well over 100 feet. The arborist came in and said immediate threat.
I have it on the
And-
screen.
Yeah, that's the house right there. You have very large trees. That one to the right, you see right there with the pink flag, that has a butt crack all the way down.
Oh, I know this house.
Yes. There was an old lady that lived there. The
Yes.
place was not maintained at all. I have found,
Okay.
excuse me, tires in the
But you
yard.
don't, but you don't own it yet, right?
I do own it.
Oh, so it offer was accepted.
Sometimes I wish I took it back,
Okay.
to be honest with you.
Okay,
I've talked to neighbors, they have concerns about it. One neighbor told me that the houses all next door had a similar situation like I do here. They were all cut down. One of the families told me that she used to have her kids sleeping in the basement on windy nights.
in
And you have-
fact, even to the left of your property, there's a stump. out
Yeah,
by the street
that
with a big
recently
tree.
fallen. One of the neighbors told me that that porch that had a tree falling on it.
Yeah.
I'm concerned, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And at the last meeting, a guy said, because I've been listening, that he said that, why can somebody build a building next to wetlands and I can't cut down a tree? And he says, I've had to live the last 20 years in fear of that tree coming down. Now, I get the whole the wetland regulations and how that works. But it was encouraged at that time that he should apply immediately. And I hope that by me introducing myself, I'm willing to work with you to get these things down. I need them down.
So
And
you
I
talked
will-
to
yep.
Chuck, so Chuck has talked you through the process, the permit for taking
Mhm.
down trees, especially
Right.
in the
Yeah,
buffer
I
area.
just don't want to be dragged along. I've read the minutes from 550 West Street. I don't want to be dragged.
That was
2.5
the wrong
years.
one to read.
Yeah, that was.
I get nervous reading that.
That was
I've read the whole thing.
How many trees does he take? You say?
40 something trees.
No, he
He
started
started-
out,
He asked for more than 100.
he asked for
Really?
more than 100 trees from the start.
So as long as you beat that, you're in much better. shape.
Yeah.
And
It
I'm
looks to
willing.
me like
and
you maybe have 4 or
I
5.
have about, I have about a half an acre. And when Chucky was there, he mentioned some of my buffer zone areas and areas that I could possibly plant trees. Now, we did pull the permits already. And northeast, that was there, that's the sign you can see on that Google Earth. They already made the determination that you can't plant here. Now, I would like to make it.
They
Sorry.
made the determination you can't plant.
They said the soil is, I don't know what the correct terminology
Oh,
is.
okay.
But I would love to make it at some point where I could plant a couple of trees in the back, create some privacy, because the owners of the woods behind my house, they own 2.5 acres. And they're always with their dogs back there. I would love to create some privacy. And one of the lady, one of them mentioned today about transporting trees. I got some small trees. I'd love to be able to transport them in the air if I can. You know, I just really worry about these large pine trees for the foreseeable future. I really do.
And I think we have other ways of compensating besides just planting trees. I mean, you mentioned there's a lot of garbage in the back, so.
I cleaned all that up. There was an old sign from the tires I had to get rid of. There was an old sign, I believe that's maintained a lot, and I'm sure that's helping the wetland situation too. I don't know. I think I'm doing the right thing.
So I appreciate you bringing this up.
Yeah.
I will now take advantage of you being here to ask you something. So that stream running next to your house was filled with leaves, debris of all sorts, and the town one time cleared it. They're not gonna clear it again, so please do not develop the habit of brushing things that way.
If it would help, I can always make sure that that brook is clean.
Yeah, well, it will help you too, because.
I believe you, but for the conservation, for the neighbors.
Yeah.
I will make sure that it's clean because I own the other side of that.
But just as long
The
as you're,
hydrant.
Yeah, just as long as you're aware that has been a problem area in
Mhm.
the past. And I think we've used up the
I
town's
appreciate it.
patience with
Just bottom line, I hope you guys take my application serious. That's all I'm asking for.
it. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So what application are you submitting? Is it the
It's
tree
gonna be
permit?
the tree removal.
For or less trees would be a tree permit. For more trees
There's gonna be 4 more trees, John.
would be a request for determination of applicability. And yeah, if you got a note from the arborist and they deem that tree up front was dangerous, that's all you'd need to take it down. So we know, we work with all of them, but I know it's Jim, I believe. Fitzpatrick is the one that has the arborist license.
Yeah, okay. I appreciate that. I worry that, with the amount of money I've already spent on the house, I worry about just, getting pushed around a little bit, spending all this unnecessary money, creating financial hardship on myself.
So you can't compare yourself to 550.
I get it. I know.
West Street
I
was
know.
completely
That was a
completely
major
different.
project.
That was in back of there was so
And they
much
were on a
there.
river.
They were riverfront, there was an untouched piece of land behind them, it was pristine. And if you go by now,
I drove by.
that guy has done a wonderful job.
Mhm.
It's
And
really nice.
no one's gonna agree with this, but I think that if we just agreed at the first bit, it wouldn't look like that. I think we both came out with a great project. That is a wonderful looking house, wonderful looking landscape. I hope they're happy because it does look beautiful.
Right, and I hope I'm in the same situation at the end of the day.
Sure.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
I love it so far. I grew up in North Reading. My parents are 7 minutes down the road.
So it's a big upgrade.
Right. Yeah. There we go.
Thank
Sticking
you.
around, so they.
Okay. So we're gonna move on for conversation about violation notices. Chuck has some information to give us about updates on 445 Pearl Street.
Yeah, so I went out to 445 Pearl Street with the town building commissioner and Ryan Percival, the town engineer. They both looked at the work. The building commissioner is going to send them a violation notice. He said that the I don't want to put any words in his mouth, but he was concerned about the retaining wall. And I was told to send an email to the owners, which I did, that said, do not park in this area. That wall is dangerous, and do not do any more work. So they're on hold, and I think the town engineer is going to write something up, and so is the building commissioner, and we'll send all that out, see what happens. And hopefully get some
He sent an
compliance.
email, so he should be already notified.
I would consider him notified,
Can
yeah.
swing by.
So no more work. It did look like there was a car parking there, and you could see the retaining wall bending out. And the deadmen seemed to be not flush with the edge of the retaining wall as it was stacked up. So like they're being sucked through. So it's like set back a little bit. And I don't know if it happened that way. Plus there was some wires out there that were attached. Did you guys, anyone see any wires out there?
Yeah, those look like stays that were keeping the wall from going out even farther.
But it seemed to be,
Couldn't see where they were
it
anchored.
didn't seem to be anchored. I mean, they went into the soil, it didn't seem to be attached to anything.
Yeah, well, they were taught when we went out there. But, I don't know how that was worked, and the building commissioner did, you need a structural plan stamped by a structural engineer with this, for something like this. And the reason to get them out there is it's, the wall is more than 4 feet tall. So I haven't heard back from the Rivers, but that's the update, and this is an ongoing situation.
And if I wanted to send an email to anybody, it would go to you and you'd forward it,
To Rivers or to who?
no, to discuss anything that I see.
out on site.
Right, no, I'm expecting if I drive by and see a car parked there, I want to tell somebody, so I should just tell you.
Yeah, let me know, but I would always, so if you're seeing something like that, yeah, you can send it to me. If you felt like sending it to, the building department at the same time is fine, but I'll always, forward that stuff.
I just didn't know if that was the best.
No, they haven't, everyone has their own bucket. I mean, I don't know if from what I heard, I don't know if the building inspector or the commissioner is gonna help us with what we're doing. We still need to proceed. But
So we still have the issue where the other bank is loose soil and open to erosion. We don't have an answer to
and it's
that.
covered in, that was unclean soil. There's cement, bricks,
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of debris
broken
in there. That's-
bottles. You can see it really well now because the rain's washed
Sure.
the soil.
So what do we do about that in the meantime while this other thing
It's
plays
not a
out?
separate action. It's whole, I mean, the plan, we didn't say,
I think that far bank at the very least can be stabilized, that something, like, even some type of a seed mix ought to be planted on that to get some stability. Or covered with a fence of some sort or a netting. It's just gonna
Jute
get worse
mat,
every time. it
maybe
rains.
some topsoil and jute mat, but try to clean out the debris. There's a lot there. I'm
Well,
ashamed of.
Cleaning out
cover it
the
up.
debris is just going to make the soil looser. Wouldn't want to do that until there was a overall solution in sight, right?
So we could just throw down some, quick, highway mix or something like
Something-
that, I
something
don't know.
like that.
And then not design it and then tell them, hey, look, this has gotta get fixed or something.
Did the town engineer opine on the stability of the far side of the bank, if that could collapse imminently?
Far side seemed stable enough. Didn't seem to be, I mean, you're gonna have some erosion, rain, but it was the retaining wall side that was the concern.
Okay, so do we want to ask you to send an email to Mr. Rivers telling him to put down some seed on the north bank? Is that the process?
Yeah, I can, any other thoughts about, should we wait until we hear? I mean, putting down seed is fine. Should we wait to hear from the building inspector and all that?
So my issue is I don't know how fast that moves. In the meantime, it keeps raining. As you said, the stones and everything, is now more visible because the soil's washing away. It's washing away into the stream.
Is the seed even gonna grow? Do they need netting?
Well, that's the question. So what do we want him to do now while the rest of it plays out? I'd say minimum, throw down some seed that grows quickly to stabilize it. I don't know whether there should be more. There should be a net or something right away.
Do you have any ideas, Tony?
Well, the first question is logistics. How would it get fixed? If you're trying to remove that soil, if you can't even park the car, you're not gonna be able to park an excavator to reach that soil. So I
And
think
that's why you put it there.
right?
Yeah.
So I think what we're looking at right now is just a temporary stabilization, something that's not a permanent solution.
Right.
Um,
So you think throwing down a seed mix will be fast enough, sufficient enough?
to start, I don't know what else to do, but it's something, and it's not terribly costly.
Do you have any ideas? That you want to say out loud?
Yeah, step up from there is just jute netting and some seed or something like that, but I think seed would be fine. There's, at the very end, I don't know if you saw this, Tony, at the very end, you can see where he's, like, one of my thoughts
Which on
was.
the street end or the downstream?
Downstream. So, like he took the material out, or he placed the material where the retaining wall was across on the other bank. And he worked that down, and he filled in his own land with that, I don't know, garbage laden, soil. And that's why it's across the bank now. It's at the very end, there's this spot that looks like it's carved open.
It
And
juts
I
out a
thought
little?
that
Yeah.
that was erosion, or it was just not enough soil to cover that also. So I'm not sure if he's having a significant erosion control problem over there where it's just kind of undercutting all the bank.
Yeah, it looked like that to me.
It looked like it was undercutting.
Okay.
And I think if you look also, there's a lot of large stones that were placed there, and I don't know if that was, and it looked like it was recent too.
We saw scoring on them.
Yeah. So I don't know if that was done as a means to prevent undercutting.
I thought it was there to be a foundation for this retaining wall of sorts.
It could have been multifunction. It's a lot of questions. None of it looks.
So I would say have them throw down some seed mix fast as you can. And give them a week, we go out there and see if anything's growing, if it's holding. And then maybe before the next.
So
at
the
next
commission
meeting.
has a plan that was, put together through, Williams and Sparagus that everyone agreed would work. I mean, that seems to be what he needs to go back to.
So you think he can execute that half of the design, that far bank?
It looks like, so the Williams Sparagus plan didn't seem to be too elaborate. All it basically did was, 3-to-1 slope.
It gave a
And
slope
then
and plant
vegetation
things.
with the core fascine logs at the bottom. So
Line
I
staking, yeah.
I think you would have to dig a little bit out, pop those in, and then that's why I said some topsoil. Of course, the retaining wall side, you gotta remove the retaining wall and do all that, and that's gonna lose a lot of that area that he used for a driveway. But I think you could build up once you stake those
I
logs
think the
into the
question
bank.
Tony asked is, can he do it? I don't know if that was your emphasis, but that's the way I heard it.
I mean,
I don't know, is there reaching across?
is there a spot to put an excavator that's not too close to that retaining wall? Because if that wall isn't holding, he's not even allowed to park a car there. Placing an excavator in that same spot isn't gonna be much safer, probably more dangerous, right? So is there even an area that he can work from to reach that opposite bank with an excavator safely?
Well, someone's gonna have to do it, whether he does it or somebody else. I'm not sure that how it gets done is our problem. Just that it does get done.
Although don't we care that somebody gets selected to do it or self-selected to do it, who has the skill to do it properly? I mean, there was some thought that this guy, because of his background, would be able to do that work. I think we were sadly mistaken. And so the question is, if he did that before, why is he going to do something better and different this time? I don't see that happening. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but doesn't seem likely.
Yeah, I'm not sure, obviously if we get to talk to town council again, I'm not sure we can tell them who can do the work.
Can we tell him who can't do the work?
I'm not sure we can do that.
We can't say somebody licensed.
I think we can only tell them what work needs to be done. So if you wanted to go out there with a shovel and a pick, as long as it's making progress, I mean, I think, I don't know where that goes. If you
Need to
could
change the
get
law.
into that kind of detail. And
Yeah, okay, all right. I don't like it, but
I mean, you can certainly monitor the work, and if you see things that aren't going the right way, you
I mean, you could certainly, yeah, so
bring it up.
but then what?
you could
Then
say
stop.
something like the work needs to be performed by a qualified professional. Now, works for a construction company, he may have contractor's license or something like that, and, a hoist license and all that, so we're really not eliminating them, but we are raising the bar.
We're
I
not
mean,
making
with
me
other
happy.
projects, we require an environmental monitor. You could have as a requirement, as a condition, somebody going once a week or twice a week and signing off and saying, yeah, this is being done in accordance with the plan.
I get that. The problem is there's a presumption there of suppose you go there and it's not being done well, then what? We're at the same position and now we're further downstream, pardon the pun. And some work has been done and there's more exposed soil.
I mean, it's in the applicant's interest or the violator's interest to do it correctly. And every time it gets done incorrectly, the cost goes up.
Okay, I mean,
Right, I mean,
I'll drop it. I'm clearly the only one in the land, not in the land of Pollyanna, but I just don't see this working out well.
No, but it may not, but there's only so much we can do. I mean, we can't hire the company, we can't select the company, we can't design the project.
I know all three of those things.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at some point, it's up to the
Okay,
violator to
We
fix it.
we asked Chuck to give him an email saying, put some seed down and we'll check it weekly.
I think one of the action items from the last meeting was you were gonna speak to somebody about fines.
Yeah.
That's what led to that.
I did an update. So. Yeah, so I haven't heard back from town council yet. But when I do, I'll let you know.
You could escalate it and call it an illegal fill of a wetland. You could take it to district court, I suppose.
So I think the building inspector is unsatisfied and concerned about that retaining wall. It's in his regulations that it needs to be designed. So depending on what he says.
That's what we asked for in
And
our
if it
last meeting
didn't,
also.
yeah. But,
We asked
and
for
we-
it designed by.
we didn't have.
Stamped by a PE.
Right, but we didn't have a retaining wall in our design. We had bank. That was it. And at 3-to-1 slope. And so, if the guy reached in and did the 3-to-1 slope and he could reach across, and I think that question came up about reaching across. He goes, I'll get a bigger machine. That's,
Okay, let's
he
move on.
sounded like he knew what he was doing, but we
Gotta
saw
move
that
on, 'cause
that's not the
Celtics aren't
case.
done yet.
We're spending more time.
Let's go.
on it than he is.
Huh.
Could be true. Okay, so please send him an email.
I'm gonna update the enforcement order. That's the direction I've got.
Fair
To Cassie on the other side. And, I mean, you certainly can, I'll invite him to the next meeting and at that meeting, I'm just trying to figure like, what can we do? Like, we're gonna make this, like, we gotta, what is the final step? The final step is to say, we listened to you, you modified your plan, we don't agree. We approved a plan by Williams and Sparagus. At this meeting, we're voting again that that's the plan we want you to follow. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then we put that in the enforcement order. So now he knows that he can't modify it. Don't want a retaining wall. We want bank and that.
And he has to have a date certain by when he needs to be done. I don't remember if we had that in the enforcement order or not, but
Yeah.
it would need to be in there.
Give him 2 months or we can start fining.
Okay.
And so I'll update the enforcement order to get him to the next meeting. Tell him to throw the seed down, but it's at that next meeting is when you're gonna have all the rest of that stuff. 2 months, we don't accept your other plan. If that's what you don't accept, I mean, I don't wanna put words in your mouth, but it doesn't sound like it's going that direction. Okay,
Okay, so next, Conservation DPW monthly meeting discussion.
what about
Oh,
the,
we skipped one, sorry.
yeah.
Saw DPW one. DPW storage container review and sign off. This was the topic where the water fountain that was put in without the permit, they were gonna put stone border around it with wooden boards around the stone border, and I was gonna go out and take a look at it. In the end, Martha and I both went out to take a look at it. First issue is a minor detail, doesn't matter much, which is it's square and the plan is going to be circular. It doesn't matter, it's big enough and everything else. The issue,
So you're saying they put it in the plan as round and how they built it was
It's a square.
square?
remember that right?
Remember what shape it was in the plan. You had it in your mind that it was circular.
Okay, so we'll double check.
But
Either,
it's 3 beams.
yeah,
And the middle is all filled with.
but it
gravel.
doesn't matter because I don't think that's an issue anyway. So I mentioned it, I shouldn't have in case I was wrong. But that brings us to something that I do think is an issue, which is where they put the boards down. They obviously dug out a trench, put the board in, and it's filled right in on the one side with the stone. The stone is right next to it. In the plan, it was supposed to be flush with the soil, which is not. It does stick up. The worst part is on the side away from the stone. There's a trench. They didn't fill in the other side of the trench. So they put the board down, stone against the board, and then vacant all the way around on the outside. Positive side, it's relatively flat. Negative side, it is potential for erosion, what have you. As importantly, like the one we just talked about, they didn't do it to plan. So from my perspective, I think we tell them, do it to plan, fill in that other side. I don't have an opinion whether we should ask them to make it flush like they originally said. I don't have a strong opinion either way on that, but at the very least, fill in the other side. Any opinions on whether being flush matters?
If I'm standing in front of it, what is the other side? Left-hand side, right-hand side?
Well, it goes
Outside on
around.
all three sides.
Fill in the outside.
Outside of all three sides.
From a wetland standpoint, I don't know if there's much of an issue whether it's raised or flush.
So I'm not worried about the flush then. I do worry about the trench.
Yeah.
So they should
Yeah.
fill it in.
And I'd
So
like
there's
to
a,
see
there's a
some grass.
depression and that needs to be filled in
Yes,
to meet the existing grade.
Yes,
well said.
Okay,
and plant some grass seed on top,
and grass seed.
because otherwise the dirt will just wash away.
Okay,
Here's the concern. Okay.
It also seems like a tripping hazard. I mean, that's not a conservation issue, but it just, you go out and then, it's got like a 6-inch trough all the way around the outside.
Okay,
did they do the welcome sign that I requested?
the what?
The welcome all dog walkers sign
Been trying very hard to keep a straight face.
Drink
We're
up.
Failing.
at our, have, cool your little paws down and,
Cool your leash, dog.
yeah,
It's not a good time for you to try and develop a sense of humor.
take
Okay.
take a
moving.
drink of our wonderful water here in Reading. Bring your dog with you.
Yeah, let them drink wine.
What's
Um,
next?
I'm glad the DPW bought
Conservation,
and installed that, water fountain.
conservation, DPW meeting, monthly meeting discussion. I'll go first, and then you guys can mitigate what I say if you wish. I think it was an extremely poor meeting. There was an agenda, much of the agenda had to do with various topics that we conservation we're asking DPW to do. We wanted to know that they would do them and ideally when they would do it for planning purposes. For example, some of the topics had to do with work we're going to have the summer volunteers do. So clearly that would need to be in place before the volunteers get here, things like that. There were, as I said, 7 items or so. The answer we got over and over, not once, not twice, over and over is, sorry, we can't commit. Hopefully we can do these things. Different cuts at it were taken. I asked, can you pick 3 and commit to them so we can plan around them and the others you can hopefully get to? No, we can't commit to anything. So at this point, the coordination meeting has become very uncoordinated. And it's I don't want to read anything into it that wouldn't be appropriate, but it leaves us in a bad place because a lot of things that we in the past years have gotten done and things that we were thinking we're going to get done and we have planning around it. One thing, for example, is there are plans to build a deck behind Matera Cabin. The money for the materials would come from some remaining ARPA funds or grant. That's a grant.
It's the remaining ARPA funds.
Yeah, and what we needed DPW to do, still need them to do is put the supports in place. And I believe there were 2 trees there that were close to the footprint of the deck. And I forget whether they're gonna look at them to assess them or things like that. But there's different items we would like done. One, which is absolutely important, is to recondition the soil in the bare meadow where the walking path was for decades, because that's compacted. We want to replant there. So we asked them to put on their list going through there and turning it up. There's a place on the existing path that goes up the hill from the Pearl Street parking lot up to the viewing platform where we want them to put a bench. So these are the kinds of things that we have asked. Obviously, benches have been put in place all the time. Just last year, there was one put in by the pavilion. There was one put in by Matera Cabin. This year, we're getting the, sorry, can't commit. Hopefully, we can get to these things. I think I'm gonna stop now. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, only to say that the trees were evaluated. I think it took somewhere around 2.5, 3 months to get them out there. I had to end up talking to Mike Kessman about it, but the trees were determined to be safe. So that's not an issue. And they're not putting in the footings. We're only asking them to dig the holes and not even to be accurate about it, because the volunteers will correct left or right any of that's needed, dig them down to the final depth. You know, anyone who's dug a sonotube understands there's some adjustment going on. We're not asking them to do that. They just got us to a depth. We'll do the correcting part. And there's a lot of work involved in that, making sure it's right. And as you know, all the DPW guys understand, because they did Matera Cabin and they had to get those footings in place, and that was their responsibility on that project. But this one, we're taking that away. We're just asking them to just do the starter holes. Yeah, I don't know what to say. It's tough. That's all.
They did agree to do a couple of things. They're gonna repaint the handicap spaces at Millette Sumps Morgan. Is that where we asked them to do the painting?
Sure, as part of the townwide restriping program, they're going to come over to Matera Cabin and also paint the handicap sign that's there. So it's gonna add us to that program.
Right. And there were some wood chips you asked for, and they said they'd bring you the wood chips. So most of the things were probably can't get to it. Those 2 things were yes, and the lawn mowing was, we'll do as much as we did last year. And I don't think they did a good enough job last year.
No. I don't understand why a town can ignore one of their pieces of property that we've just spent so much money on. I've tried to bring it to their attention. I don't understand why. We're not asking for all of them, but it would be nice to have this one at least to look a little bit better. It would help us out by making it, you know, elevated, standing amongst, you know, Reading, North Reading, Andover, for people to visit. You know, we don't want to,
Okay, I am gonna say more.
so, yeah.
So. the
But
pro-
let me do, and one more thing. We can't even borrow the tools from them. So they won't let us do that either. So that was super frustrating. Cause I'm like, I'll just do it myself. But let me just borrow some tools, and now I can just go do it. Now I can't do that. Can't let you use our tools.
Yeah, they want to keep the tools for their own use. So,
It's a union thing. They won't let you touch them.
no,
I don't think it was a union thing.
I put together a desk for my wife at school and they went nuts.
yeah, I don't.
I brought my own drill.
I don't think that's-
Going crazy. So am I,
Okay, I'm not gonna say it.
but they won't do it.
Okay,
Someone-
so, I don't think I'm necessarily looking for any advice unless you have something good. This is more of a heads up that we're gonna have some headwinds for a lot of the things we want to achieve this summer.
So this is what I've been doing, trying to locate people who have trucks and trailers and the ability to help and connect with, you know, realtors that do community service, scouts that do community service, churches, same thing. Labor is helpful. We're gonna be slower, but that's what I've decided to do. And try to, you know, fill in all these jobs we have by trying to get as many people as I possibly can. Now, nothing's happened yet, but that's I've been asking everybody. So, as a matter of fact, we have, someone volunteered a truck and a trailer who's known by the, Reading Open Land Trust. So we appreciate that. Bob Connor helped us with that.
All right, moving on. Any more administrative report? Have you done enough reporting?
I feel like I should end on something great, but I don't.
Everything.
Oh, that's good enough.
Okay,
Ending is great.
so minutes for approval.
Thanks, Tony.
Minutes for approval. Which one?
422 is not done yet, but 312 went out before the last meeting.
Has everybody read it? Which one? I'm coming over there with a roller.
Right here, you see it.
Okay, so you've read it, I've read it.
I read it. Okay,
At least
so we
four
can
of
vote
us
on
have read it.
Okay, and you've submitted any comments, I presume? Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the minutes for January 22nd?
No,
I'm sorry,
March 12th.
March 22nd, it's about the same. March,
12th.
thank you, as amended.
I didn't
Alrighty.
get any corrections,
It's been perfect.
You got a gold star.
so we don't have to say as amended. As written.
So I didn't say it, so I have a motion.
I wrote it, somebody else needs to move.
He's not.
Tony
going to-
didn't
I didn't read it, so I'm not.
So it's you guys.
I move that
Tony.
we approve the minutes
I
from
had a few more minutes
March
to talk, I think.
22nd.
March 12th.
I'm sorry.
Do a second.
I move that we
Michelle.
approve the minutes
Michelle
from
second.
March
Michelle.
12th.
Okay, Tim accepts, seconds. You want-
Oh, Walter Talbot approves.
Michelle approves.
Are you abstaining
I'm
or?
abstaining.
Okay. Martha Moore approve.
Ryan Bowe in favor. Okay,
3-0.
do we have either the other two that we can, do? They're not done yet, right?
122 is not done and 326.
That just happened, that's the
Yeah.
last one.
Both of them are in progress.
Right, just tell her the eyes of the world are on her. Okay, anything else we should discuss before we head home to see how much the Celtics won by? Nothing, anything? Got a motion to adjourn at 9:21.
I move to adjourn at 9:21. Great.
All in favor? We're out of here.
Anybody second?